Podcasts on unctv.org are made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. All of you know a good deal about North Carolina as the state of the arts. The wonderful North Carolina Symphony, the wonderful North Carolina Museum of Art, the Carolina Ballet, the Pack Square Artists. If you go to Charlotte, Discovery Place, so many wonderful places that we can go and enjoy the creativeness of our people. Heading all of this for us in the administration currently in office is Linda Carlisle, a long-time public servant in North Carolina, a very successful entrepreneur in her own right, a businesswoman, and a very successful lady. We look forward to meeting and talking with her in just a few seconds.
Sponsored in part by Wachovia, a Wells Fargo company, helping North Carolina people realize their financial goals since 1879. And through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.
Well, I must say good morning since this is St. Patrick's Day.
I was afraid. I got a little bit of green, I guess. I don't want to get pinched too much today.
Well, it's so good to see you and so good to have you on the program.
Thank you.
You and I were talking a little bit ago about the Emerging Issues Forum. Toward the end of that series this year, which was on creativeness, a person whose lifetime had been spent in the performing arts made the point that today, if you really don't understand and participate and enjoy, your life is not fulfilled. You were there. What does that mean to North Carolina?
Well, I was there, and it was a great forum, absolutely, and we heard a lot of terrific messages as it relates to creativity in our state. I think what it means is that in today's economy, that if we don't value and appreciate and utilize our wonderful assets in our creative workforce, then we are going to miss the boat. I think one of the statements that was made in one of the studies that was put out by the Institute for Emerging Issues was that today creativity is the world's most valued commodity. So if we understand that, then it puts us on a path for growing that creative industry in North Carolina.
Well, now I want to go back a little bit in your life. You've just spoken eloquently about creativeness. What gave you the inspiration that you've manifested all your life in extending yourself? You not only were a successful business person, but I read about you being over here in the Girl Scouts, and you're doing this at UNCG, raising $100 million. Where did all this come from?
Wow.
Your mother, your father?
Well, I think I was always encouraged by my parents to do the best at everything I did. We were not wealthy, they were not well educated, but they valued that opportunity for me to to expand myself, to grow. And they always said, my dad said, if it was worth doing, it was worth doing right. And I've always believed that. And it sometimes puts you over the top in terms of the things you commit to and the things you get involved in. But ultimately, it's the greatest reward is when you do something and you know you've done it to the best possible ability that you can put forth.
Well, you've certainly taken Dad's advice. Now, cast your eye around North Carolina. What is the state of the arts in our beloved state right now? How would you assess where we are?
I think North Carolina is incredibly blessed. We have resources in our history, our culture, throughout the state, our arts organizations. Even in this economy, we've got great examples of the creative economy that's growing and expanding. We've got new galleries that are opening, new museums. We have the wonderful new Museum of Art gallery that will be opening next month here in Raleigh. We have the Tryon Palace History Education Center that will open in July. Both of those and many other examples like that around the state are contributing to the local economy or helping us to grow tourism in our state. It's a better than $16 billion business, and we know that cultural and heritage tourism is a good 40% of that. And we want to continue to build on that and to grow it.
I was amazed at the figure that in that news release you sent about how many people are actually employed day by day in the arts.
Right. It was that report we did in collaboration with the Department of Commerce, and so I want to say a thank you to them. We released that data in November, and it showed that in North Carolina, the creative industry is represented by almost 300,000 workers. That's better than 5.5% of our workforce. I was very delighted, if you would, in Charlotte, where we made that release, that the Charlotte Observer had on the front page that the creative industry was bigger than the finance industry and the transportation industry in North Carolina.
Saying a lot in Charlotte.
It's saying a lot to be on the front of the Charlotte Observer. And what we know about that, I mean, it is expansive. It's true whether we're looking at our rural counties or our urban counties. Creativity is all across our state. And we know that the goods and services that are produced and sustained by North Carolina's cultural institutions represents more than $41 billion each year. So it is not to be ignored. It is something that we should be proud of, but we should also be building upon that base.
When you go to a school, for example,
I love doing
and
that.
you get before a group of young people, how do you introduce this creative theme then in their minds? What approach do you use?
Well, first of all, let me just say that I do think that infusing arts education in our school curriculum is vital, and it's something that we are very dedicated to, and we are involved with the Department of Public Instruction on a broad range of areas. When I'm talking with students, I talk to them about how they need to look for lots of opportunities to develop their own skills, their own interests, their own talents, and that they do that by being involved in lots of different things. Yes, it's math and science and English, but it's also art and dance and music. And when you put all of those together, what we end up developing is young people who have the creativity and that very unique and special creative critical thinking skills that frankly are vital for us as we move ahead in this economy.
Once while I was working with the Keenan Trust, we ran upon a lady in a classroom in Wilmington who was having a terrible time getting the students to do anything. So one day she took a shoebox and she gave them all a set of crayons and pencils and said, draw. And said the whole place started lighting up and the whole attitude in the class turned around. Now that's what you're talking about here. People don't really appreciate the value of this to the learning experience.
Absolutely. You know, all the studies tell us that students who are involved with the arts stay in school. It lowers the dropout rate. They show higher SAT scores, higher overall achievement. Schools that have the arts infused in the curriculum have teachers who have greater satisfaction with their job because their students want to be there, they're enjoying being there. And typically we find also that the greater community tends to be more involved when the arts are integrated within the curriculum. And we hope to see that become a foundation in North Carolina.
A great big chunk of what you're so proud of right now is the expansion in the Museum of Art itself. What's the schedule? When are we going to get to look in?
It is so close and it's so wonderful. The public grand opening is the weekend of April 23, 24, and 25, and there will be all kinds of wonderful opportunities for our citizens to come out and to celebrate this remarkable art collection. And now we have a new gallery that in itself I think is a work of art. I can't wait for everyone to get a chance to experience this new building, the grounds. It is, I think, a fabulous new way of experiencing art. It's very personal, it's up close, it's accessible to people. And I think it's just going to be remarkable for our citizens, and I think it's going to be very attractive to people all over the country and around the world.
You prompt this question then. Yes, North Carolina's having this all over. Renolda, the big museum in Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
This network carried a special on Pack Square in Asheville.
Right.
All was going on up there. You go down to Wilmington. What's the interconnection then? Do you loan artwork Do you see that artwork is loaned from the state level to the community, or swap back and forth? How do you keep in touch?
There's certainly collaboration among the museums all around the state. Typically, we are not a lending museum. Now with the new gallery, we're going to have a very high percentage of our collection on permanent display. So it's there for our citizens, our school children, our teachers to be able to enjoy and appreciate day in and day out. But there is a really strong network of our leaders of our museums working together and collaborating. And you're right, no matter where you go in the state, there are wonderful things happening, from Wilmington to Asheville and all points in between. And it's really wonderful to see and to be out there and to know that our citizens are engaged, involved, and committed to growing and expanding the arts in their local communities. Somebody
as passionate as you are about this, suppose you were in Wilmington and the art museum director said, Madam Secretary, over here is Susie Jones. I want you to look at some of her work. You instantly recognize talent. She needs help. What could the state do to help that creativeness there?
Well, I think I'd probably turn to our wonderful, dedicated, passionate leaders in our North Carolina Arts Council, who are incredible resources. I turn to them on a regular basis as I run into situations of people needing guidance or help. I happened to have been in Burlington just a few weeks ago, and I met a writer who said, I really need to find a network of writers to interact with. And so I came back to the office, put her in touch with some of the folks in our Arts Council, and they're already making those kinds of connections. So our Arts Council, the North Carolina Arts Council, is a model nationally, and the folks who are there are really experts. And so I turn to my experts for those situations.
Well, now, interestingly enough, the pattern that you set up in art is also true in music. You've got the great North Carolina Symphony,
right?
But there are symphonies in Charlotte and in Greensboro and Asheville. What's the interconnectedness? How do you get at the creative composer, for example?
Well, all of our symphonies are wonderful throughout the state, and we are certainly very blessed that North Carolina has the first state-supported symphony. It's been with us for a long time, and they do great work. Our staff there is marvelous, and Grant Llewellyn is just a treasure, and we are delighted to have him here. But they can't be everywhere. This is a big state. I've certainly learned that this year as I've tried to visit all of our sites and all of our museums.
500 miles wide.
Absolutely, and I've traveled it several times. And so I'm delighted that we have our regional symphonies who are doing wonderful work all across the state. And of course, the North Carolina Symphony does travel a great deal. They have the most expansive educational program of any symphony in the country. Each year they travel to about 40 different counties, reaching about 50,000 school children. Most of us can remember the fourth grade experience of the symphony coming to us. I certainly can, and I value that. So, but all of our symphonies are doing that, whether it's Charlotte or Greensboro, Winston, wherever it may be. They also are reaching out to their local communities and the school children. I'm delighted at the work that they're doing.
Do you have much contact with the School of the Arts and as a state secretary, you looking in on that institution once in a while?
Well, I have the honor of serving on their board of trustees, and so I get a chance to be engaged with that. We have a number of collaborations that we're working with. For instance, the governor and Secretary of Commerce are headed out to Los Angeles to help to grow and expand our wonderful movie and television business, and so the School of the Arts have been in contact in preparation for that trip to help make contacts and set up meetings for them. So the folks at the School of the Arts are just so talented, and their range of people that they have contacts with is pretty remarkable. So we turn to them frequently on that level. But they also bring such an incredible range of talent to our state that it's a resource that we turn to frequently, and the Chancellor and I are in fairly frequent contact.
You know, it's interesting. You hear criticism that school is too many out-of-state students or too much different influence at work, but it's, as you say, it's the feeder institution for a huge industry.
It is huge, and many of those students who come here stay here. So we are continuing to expand and to grow our creative base in this state. It is an incredible resource that I think we should be very proud of and we should continue to support and expand and grow and capitalize on those talents and skills that are very unique to that school. And the students they're turning out are all over the country representing North Carolina in fabulous ways.
What's your connection then with some enterprise like the federal program in the arts? Do we bump into them occasionally? Do you make them fun things for you?
We try to do all that we can to expand our resources, and we do work closely with the National Endowment for the Arts. We did receive some funding. We received funding from the NEA. We received some stimulus funding through the NEA. We were very grateful for that. And most of that funding that we receive, then we turn around and redistribute that all across the state in the form of grants to our arts organizations, which is one of the wonderful things about this department is that we touch every county in the state. We serve over 19 million people every year. And knowing that you're reaching people and making a difference really informs the work that we do and engages my staff in very powerful ways.
And you get to worry about dance and music and art and painting and all those wonderful things.
I do. I'd like to say I don't worry, but I certainly am engaged. I sometimes have concerns when I feel that they are in any way being diminished or not fully appreciated. I am concerned when we have this economic downturn and concerned that people will begin to think that the arts are in some way not fundamental to what we do.
Cut them off first.
Yes. Daniel Pink at the Emerging Issues Forum, I think, said it great, and he said, we have to stop thinking about the arts as ornamental and start thinking about the arts as fundamental.
And they are.
And they are.
I was interested in reading about your work in sustainability. The arts are green too, huh?
In many ways. They are. You know, we are involved, and sometimes that's a surprise to people to think about the Department of Cultural Resources. How does that have to do with the green economy, or how does that have to do with jobs? And yet we consider ourselves very integral in both. We have right now over $200 million in construction projects that we are overseeing. And in every single one of those, we are taking steps to be sustainable, that the work that we are doing at every level that we can is representing the best of the green economy. The new museum will be LEED certified. We have a huge cistern that is buried out there behind our new museum that is collecting rainwater and condensation from the air conditioning, and that water will then support the wonderful landscaping that is there. In New Bern, we're doing great things at the new center there that we're building with stormwater runoff. They're actually providing a resource for stormwater runoff for a large section of downtown New Bern. So I like to think we're also being good citizens as well.
You got Larry Wheeler planting grass around the new museum?
Larry Wheeler is planting a lot of things around the new museum. You are going to be inspired and impressed when you have a chance to see all of it.
I was struck by the way when you come into North Carolina, you go into these centers where tourists stop, you do a good job of saying, see this, see this, see this, see this. You keep that updated all the time, and when there's a new show, people get a chance to be seen?
We try our best to do that. I'll have to give credit to the Department of Commerce who runs those centers, but we are trying to be up to date, and we're doing even more now online. More and more of our travelers, the first stop they make is online to figure out where they're going, what they're going to travel, what they're doing. So we're working with visitnorthcarolina.com to make sure that data about the work that we're doing from the new Museum of Art to the Education Center, as well as our plans for the commemoration of the Civil War sesquicentennial, which is a big business in North Carolina, and we have over 125 events scheduled at our state historic sites alone to commemorate the 150th of the Civil War. And in fact, I think it's next week I'm going to Bentonville, where they will have the largest reenactment in North Carolina. We're expecting maybe as many as 40,000 to 50,000 people at Bentonville. And but those kinds of events are going to be happening all over the state over the next few years.
Well, you know, there's so many things that are so instructive. The center over in Durham, Bennett House, you know, the Civil War actually ended right there in
It
a way.
did.
But so many people don't take the opportunity really to get off the highway and look once in a while.
Well, you know, it's been one of the pleasures of my job. One of my goals last year was to visit all of our state historic sites and museums, and I finally got my last visit in at the end of the month of December, so I did make that.
You have really been covering ground.
I've covered some ground. I have seen sites that I had not taken the time to visit myself. Some are out of the way. Each one is so unique and so special, and I have to tell you how grateful I am as a citizen that we've had leaders who understood the importance of preserving and protecting our history and our culture, and it's reflected, and our citizens have the chance on a regular basis to go out to our sites and our museums, and they're going to have a special opportunity this summer. We have a program we're starting this summer called Second Saturdays, and on the second Saturday of June, July, and August, at every single historic site and every museum of the state, we will have wonderful programs of our historical programs, obviously, but crafts and artists and musicians and dancers and food. It's just, and each one will be different and unique to those sites. So no matter where you are, on the second Saturday of June, July, and August, you're not going to be far from a wonderful time at one of our sites or museums.
And you're doing so much to make us aware of the fact of the original Americans, the Indians.
Yes.
And the sites, I was at Warren Wilson College not too long ago seeing what's happened there.
Right.
And there's 7 different tribes historically in our state. There's so much there. Well, let's take a look at the future now.
Okay.
You've made all these trips. You've soaked up all this information. Looking ahead, what would you want to try to do now in the next 2 or 3 years? What do you want to see the state achieve?
I want us to value and utilize our arts as an integral part of our economy. I want us to understand that the arts not only feed our souls, but they also feed families all across the state. It's a vital industry. It's an industry that I think we can capitalize on in a way that makes us unique and special, and it will make it possible for our governor and our Secretary of Commerce to do an even stronger job of helping to grow jobs in North Carolina. She tells us every day that no matter what title we have, our number one priority is to help find jobs for our North Carolinians, and we all, those of us who have the pleasure of serving in her cabinet, take that very seriously, and I do. And those 300,000 jobs that I mentioned that are part of the creative economy are very important to the state. They're very important to me. I want to see us utilize the great assets we have, capitalize on them, continue to grow our cultural and heritage tourism in very powerful ways that will make a difference in communities large and small throughout North Carolina.
Isn't there a big factor of pride in all of this that you're touching now that we've never really touched before? Community, they get excited about what happened in their town?
They do, and you know, no matter where I go, I find that. I find people who are stepping up, who want to make a difference. I've had people come and visit with me. I've visited with them in their cities and towns, and they're saying, look at the assets we have. Look at the treasures that we have here in this community. We want to figure out how we can make them more accessible, how we can use them as a catalyst for strengthening the community, growing tourism, growing businesses here, showing people why this is a good community to live, to work, to play, to stay.
I hope that on her mission to Hollywood then that you mentioned, that the governor stopped things like Coal Mountain being filmed in Romania when it was written right up here in our mountains. And
Absolutely.
We've got to reverse that process.
Well, I can assure you there's no one more passionate about that than the governor is. And what sometimes I think we fail to realize is when we talk about the film industry, for instance.
Big industry.
It's a big industry. And we have so many of those creative, talented people who already live here in North Carolina, who want to stay here in North Carolina. And right now, they've been having to go outside the state to do their job and then coming back here. We want to make sure they can stay and work here in North Carolina and that we can also grow that business. It's a pretty green business when you think about it. There's it's a great business for us to have. We've got resources all across the state that can make us a very strong and viable location for film and television.
Well, the recent filming down at Rodanthe proves it, how accessible
Absolutely.
we really are.
Absolutely.
You're enjoying this, aren't you?
I love it, actually. The governor told me that I was going to have a good time, and she asked me that on a fairly regular basis, but she asked that of all of her cabinet members. And you know, across the board, everyone says around the table when we have a chance to be together that we're all enjoying what we do. Understandably, it's not the best of times from a financial standpoint.
Sure, that's all right.
But I'm convinced that the true talent and the true test of people comes when things aren't at their best. And I think what we have is a team of talented people working together. And collaboratively, we've got so many good things happening, and I'm just delighted to be a part of it. And it is such a pleasure to meet and to serve the citizens of North Carolina.
That's a very happy note that we have to conclude on today,
Thank
Madam Secretary. But listening to you, I know I speak for all the audience, saying thank you for your obvious enthusiasm and tenacity and goodwill that's working. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have enjoyed getting acquainted with this very dedicated public servant who does so much for the cultural life of North Carolina. Till next week then, good night.
Sponsored in part by Wachovia, a Wells Fargo company, helping North Carolina people realize their financial goals since 1879. And through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC TV.
Podcasts on unctv.org are made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC TV.